The world is constantly changing. I was looking at Bloomberg the other day when I was reminded how dramatic the changes have been. Quietly in the background. This article was mainly about the fact that we might have seen peak internet growth. So like smartphones, we've been used to every year seeing significant growth in both the number of internet users and smartphones. Though perhaps both have now peaked. How does that affect your business? What you're doing? But hidden within this, it mentions that North America, Europe, and Japan represented 63% of the global GDP in 1985. By 2015, their contribution dropped to 29%. So basically, in 1985, the only game in town was North America, Europe, and Japan. The rest were kind of bit part players. But now, it goes on to say that China and emerging markets in Asia represent 63%, the same as what North America, Europe, and Japan used to. So in effect, that block is the dominant, significant one. The rest kind of being asides. Which is a significantly different way of looking at the world. And that reminded me of something I'd seen 5-10 years ago. The share of world GDP throughout history. And there are various plots showing this kind of information around on the net. But it's worth pausing and having a look at how much things have changed. And this is over the last 2,000 years. So, we're not talking about a 5-year plan or a 10-year plan. This is pretty long term. So, way back at 1 AD, India was 32% of the world economy, with China at 25. And basically, those two are the giants. Doing a bit of maths, we see if you add that, you get less than 60. So when it's China and Asia or developing emerging markets, whatever, was over 63, that's bigger than this. But the other ones, like in the US, was 0.3. If we jump forward 1,000 years, so India didn't change that much. Well, it's fallen from 33 to 27.8, but it's still the largest. China is now 22.7. Europe, as in UK, France, Germany, is 4. What was it? 3.7. So not a huge change. Japan seems to have gotten bigger. So I'll just skip through these since you get the idea. We go to 1500. Now China's the biggest. Pretty close to to India. The US is still basically nothing. Europe's a bit bigger, but again, these two are the giants. So we've just gone through 1500 years, and it's basically India and China. 1700, still India and China. Again, India's number one. 1820, though Europe has grown. 1820. 14, that's bigger, but China's now clearly the biggest, and 33% of the world economy. I just look back at where India was. India was 32. So that's the most dominant economy in our collection here. China in 1820 was 33% of the world economy. India still the second, though Europe is pretty close. 1870, ooh, now Europe is... So China's fallen quite a bit. India's now down to third place. But Europe is king. But it's only 22%. Remember, China was 33. 1913, Europe is still king. Asia has really fallen because it's not even in the top two. The US has grown quite a bit. Bring on World War II, which destroys most of Europe and Japan and the world. So the US surge ahead to 27%. Again, far smaller than India and China have been. 33%. So that's 1950. We go to 1980. Well, now it's only 21%. So the US has lost in its dominance in that 30-year period. Japan has grown. India, China are still not really doing much. China went from 4.6 to 5.2. Okay. And then we get to more recent times, 2008. Big move by China, up to 17.5. US still shrinking in effect, because remember it was 27%, then I think 21. No, then yeah, 21, and now 18.6. Europe, well, this is UK, France and Germany. For some reason they've ignored Italy. I mean, there's the Roman Empire earlier on, then Spain was very significant at other times. So I would have liked the European figure, but you know, you can figure that out yourself because there are Wikipedia data tables and so on. But the main point is that the world is always changing. China is expected to surge ahead and become the largest in various projections. By about 2050, India becomes the second largest. So you have to keep that in mind when investing, because this is on the Quant channel, that the bigger trends should be aligned, or your investments should be aligned with the bigger trends. If you can see that China is surging ahead, it's going to be the biggest, there's huge growth there, you want your investments to take advantage of that. They should be in the big markets, in the growing markets, as opposed to the kind of static slowly shrinking segments. So that's a more big picture, something to keep in mind thought. I don't know how you're dealing or how you consider this kind of move that's going on. I would have liked in a chart also to have Africa, because the general analysis and view is that Africa is going to be where there's huge change in the coming century, which for example means the population is going to go from, I mean, that's where most of the world's population growth is going to occur in the next 100 years. And that, for example, means that we expect that the most spoken language in the world in 2100 is not going to be English, it's not going to be Chinese, it's not going to be Spanish, it's going to be French.